If there's one thing I know to be true, it's making big ass life decisions can be so overwhelming that it can take you into a complete tailspin. And this idea of going from fully gainfully employed to retirement is such a jump in the deep end of the pool of life that I don't think anyone is spending enough time talking about it or thinking about it. And yes, I see a lot of people out there in the YouTubes talking about either they've retired and they love it, or they retired and they hated it, so they went back to work. But we don't talk about that process of making the decision enough. And personally, I am not someone who has a lot of self-trust when it comes to big life decisions because I tend to be rather impulsive, and very often the decisions I make don't go as expected. Let's just leave it at that. So as it relates to this decision to retire, even though I technically can, the idea is so scary because everything that I've built, especially as a business owner in this final phase of my working life, it's taken so long to build. And the idea of just letting it all go, making this decision has been so all consuming, and I clearly am getting nowhere. So instead of thinking about this from a black and white perspective, what I've decided to do over the next several months is take a bit of a mini retirement. And everybody's definition of mini retirement is going to look a little bit different. I think that the most obvious way of defining that is just taking a break from work to see if you don't want to work anymore. But as a business owner, I can't really do that. I am a party of one in my business. So if I just step away for, an undetermined amount of time, my business will not carry on without me. So that is not really an option for me. But I do have a lot more flexibility in terms of what I can do in my business. So I can dial things up or I can dial things down on the front end and on the back end, meaning being someone whose business is online, I can make things look like they're running as per usual on the front end of marketing and keeping up with social media, but on the back end, doing less in terms of money making, revenue generating activity that is the core pieces of my business. So that is what I decided to do from this period of late August to the end of the year-ish. We are in Southern California for the next couple of months. This is part of this retirement-ish experiment where we're deciding where it is we want to land for our forever future. It's probably not going to be Austin. We already know that. But here we are in Southern California, testing out a certain town, a certain neighborhood, a certain house that is a short-term rental and is going to give us enough time to really get a flavor of the community that we're in, enough to say this is either absolutely the way we want to go or no, it's not, or at the very least figure out what bits and pieces we want to move forward with versus the ones that we don't. And we've been in this short-term rental now for just over a week, and as I start to get myself set up in this mini retirement lifestyle, I'm thinking about what are the things that I'm going to continue to do in my business versus what are the things that I'm going to let slide for the time being. And as I was going through everything that I do in my business, which is probably a lot more than I should, I decided to list them out and measure them based on what is most important in this stage of life. And that is somewhat inspired by my favorite book, Essentialism. Thank you, Greg McKeown. You are God sent. This is one of the only books I own in a hard copy. Most books are on my Kindle and I read however much I want and then move on to the next one. But Greg McKeown's book is not only a hard copy book that I own, but one that I've read. This is probably my fourth time going through it. And the whole premise of the book is to be ruthless in the intention of cutting back everything in your life that is not essential. And my definition of that is everything in your life that doesn't matter and doesn't bring you any sort of joy or fulfillment or value in some other way. So that is what I started to think about in the context of my business. And I went through this very high-tech, sophisticated process in my journal of creating a little matrix of all the things I do in my business and which of them are high effort, which of them are high fulfillment, and also which of them are high financial gain. So for me at this stage of life, enjoyment is more important than financial gain. It has never been that way in the past. So moving my thinking in that direction is another bit of a mind twist. But if it doesn't have high enjoyment now, another column I made was, does it have the potential to have high enjoyment, or does it have the potential to have high monetary gain? Now, the sweet spot for me are activities I do in my business that are high enjoyment or has the potential to be high enjoyment and has either a current moderate to high income or potential to be moderate to high income. And I know I just said that income's not really all that important, but if I'm doing something in my business that is not an income generator, then it's a hobby, not a business, right? So we're looking at this through the frame of what am I doing in my business? And when I looked at that, there were so many things that I'm doing in my business that are basically hobby activities that I don't even necessarily enjoy, and some that were actually quite a bit of an effort. And that was the other metric that I was looking at. What it turns out is the highest effort, the highest potential income, and the highest potential enjoyment is YouTube videos. And when I say that, I'm speaking of my primary channel, not this one as of yet, but I really, really love doing YouTube videos. So as I looked at this matrix across everything that I was doing, looking at what was either enjoyable or had the potential to be enjoyable, and it was also making me some money, it almost didn't even matter how much effort I was putting into it, because if I was enjoying it, then it was good effort. If I was not enjoying it, it was not something I was going to continue with anyways. So looking at everything I was doing in that way was such an eye-opener, and it made it so clear to me what I should be maintaining during this mini retirement versus what I should be letting go entirely, not just for this 3-month experiment. Once I got clear on that, then I started to reorganize the way I plan my week. And I am a devotee of Notion and having a planning system that keeps me on track every day, especially as I move into this mini retirement, because the more I move away from being in front of my computer, the less attached I am to my calendar, the higher propensity I have to forget things that are truly important, especially appointments or anything like that. So I have started to reshape the way I plan my week. So it's not primarily work focused, it's now fun focused, self-care focused, and taking care of my well-being focused. And making this shift in this way feels a lot less scarier and far more aligned than making a hard and fast decision to retire. So all of that brings us to today, where I now have clarity on what is essential in my business and what I can let slide either forever or just for the next couple of months. And I've also started to fill my calendar with fun stuff that I haven't done in forever. Like I have been promising myself to take pickleball lessons for way too long. And as soon as we landed here in Southern California, that was the first thing I signed us up for. So those start on Monday. I have been going for long walks every day. We're very close to the beach, so I get out there and just enjoy Mama Nature, and it is my happy time. I have to say, possibly the best thing about being here is the outdoors. Like, that is the ocean right over there. These trails are amazing, and there's just no one for miles. And I come out here and decompress. And I'm also working out most days, usually at home, but I got myself to the gym for the first time yesterday in about 2 years. Not a fan of the gym. I've always convinced myself that I don't have time for it, but now I do, and I do know that strength training is so important. And finally, and probably most importantly, I am spending more time with my dear friends. That was one of the reasons why we came specifically to this area. We have a lot of long-term close friends here that we don't get to spend enough time with. Just being in proximity to my nearest and dearest friends is such a quality upgrade in life that I can't even put a number to it. I've got brunch dates and hike dates, and we're having people over for dinner again, and it feels so good to be back amongst friends. So the way I'm seeing this moment right now is just an experiment in all of these different ingredients that I have pulled together based on things that I've been wanting to do for a long time. And I'm going to hopefully bake them into a life that is more balanced and focused on enjoyment and learning and growing and fulfilling myself rather than focusing on working and not working, which the more I think about it is such a smaller aspect of this greater life transition that we all go through, or hopefully have the chance to go through. So that's where I'm at this point. Stay tuned and definitely come along with me on this journey of mini retirement and testing out all these little things I'm going to be doing. I'm so excited for it. And I'm also excited to share the journey. So on that note, thanks for watching. I will see you next time.